Hey Bullets YouTube channel.
Hurry up, now tell us why you're here.
Greg Beeple and Clint Bokar will still be out this race because of the hard crash they had a week ago. And Ricky Speedhouse Jr. said this. And Jack Rush said this to Ricky Speedhouse Jr. I mean, he is right. And Jay Corner became Kane Carafine's crew chief. Now, onto the starting grid, where Speedy Comet will start at pole position with Doug Throttleman, who's outside. Lightning McQueen will start on the inside of row 2 with Brick Yardley, who's outside. Row 3 has Cal Weathers, who is very good in practice, with Dale Earnhardt Jr., who missed the last race, who's outside. Row 4 has James Garrison and Bobby Swift to his outside. Now onto row 5, which has Martin Carx Jr. and Kevin Carvick, both of which had bad races last week. Row 6 has Jimmy Cables and Bad Brad Kozlowski. Hopefully he doesn't wreck anyone. Row 7 has Kurt Buschtire and Phil Tankson to his outside. Now, onto row 8, where Billy Carjoy is back after missing last week's race, and Jack DePost to his outside. Row 9 has Carl Clutchin and TG Castlenut. I wonder how they'll do this race. Row 10 has Jamarcus Capehart and Tony Gasswort, who will be making his first start this season. Row 11 has Rex Revler and Todd Marcus. I wonder how they'll both do this race. Now, onto row 12, which has Ralph Carlo qualifying for his third race this season, and Chip Gearings who's outside. Row 13 has Sebastian Silva returning after missing last week's race, and Matthew Overdrive making his second start this season. Row 14 has Ricky Axel, who won a race this season, and Kyle Carson who's outside. Row 15 has Pitbull Speed Racer and Tommy Highbanks making his second start this season. Row 16 has Marcus Kranksler and Morey Clutchburn, who had a bad qualifying run. Row 17 has Dino Draftsky and Ernie Gearson, who did very well in qualifying. Row 18 has Paunchy Wipeout and Kane Carafine in his very first Piston Cup race. Row 19 has Bruce Miller and Dirksen Augustino, who I'm surprised qualified for this race. Row 20 has Floyd Mulvihill and Brian Sparks to his outside. Now, onto row 21, where we have Rev Rodages and Bobby Rotesta. Now, who starts in 43rd? Rib Meeker starts in 43rd. He had a bad qualifying run, but he did beat these 13 cars, among many others, to qualify for this race. Now into the race. Speedy Comet would lead the first 11 laps of the race before losing the lead to Lightning McQueen, who would lead all the way until lap 32, where he'd lose the lead to Cal Weathers. He would lead until lap 39 before losing the lead to Lightning McQueen, who would take the lead once again and lead all the way until lap 42, Cal Weathers' number, and Cal Weathers would take the lead that lap, keeping the lead until lap 46, where Bobby Swift would take the lead. He would lead for 9 laps before losing the lead to Jimmy Cables, who would keep the lead for just 2 laps before losing the lead to Kevin Carvick off of pit cycles. He would lead for 2 laps before Lightning McQueen would retake the lead on lap 58. He would lead for 4 more laps before Speedy Comet would retake the lead. He would lead for 5 more laps before Cal Weathers would retake the lead. He would lead all the way until lap 72, where Brick Yardley would take the lead for the first time this race. And he would lead for 2 laps before James Garrison would take the lead for himself, leading for 2 laps before Kane Carafine would take the lead for the very first time on lap 76, and Jay Corner would have this to say to Kane Carafine. But on lap 79, Lightning McQueen would retake the lead. He would lead for just 2 laps before Cal Weathers would retake the lead. He would lead for 13 laps before losing the lead to Lightning McQueen, who would take the lead on lap 93 and lead for 11 more laps before Phil Tankson would take the lead. He would lead for 4 laps before Bobby Swift would take the lead for himself, leading for 5 more laps before losing the lead to Jimmy Cables, who would lead for 4 laps before Kane Carafine would retake the lead. He would lead for 5 laps before losing the lead to Carl Clutchin, who would lead all the way until lap 126, where Bad Brad Kozlowski would be 8th as of that lap. And then he wrecks Phil Tankson, James Garrison, Jamarcus Capehart, Martin Carx Jr., Jimmy Cables, Kevin Carvick, Billy Carjoy, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Kyle Carson, Chip Gearings, T.G. Castlenut, Sebastian Silva, Marcus Kranksler, Pitbull Speed Racer, and Rev Rodages. Why? Tony Gasworth would take the lead for the first time this season on lap 127, but later that lap, Lightning McQueen would retake the lead, leading for 2 more laps, and then Bad Brad Keselowski would push Jack DePost on lap 127, and then Jack DePost would push Bad Brad Keselowski back. But 2 laps later, Bad Brad's teammate Rex Reffler would push Brad Keselowski on lap 129, and then Doug Throttleman would fail to jump over Brad Keselowski on lap 129. And now both Bad Brad Keselowski and Doug Throttleman are now out. Cal Weathers would take the lead after the restart and lead all the way until lap 172 before Lightning McQueen would retake the lead. He would lead into lap 177 where Brick Yardley would take the lead once again. He would lead into lap 183 where he'd lose the lead to Bobby Swift. He would lead for 3 more laps before Speedy Comet would retake the lead. He would lead into lap 189 where Kane Carafine would take the lead once again, leading into lap 193, and then lose the lead to Lightning McQueen. He would lead for 6 more laps before Speedy Comet would retake the lead, leading for 12 more laps before Lightning McQueen would retake the lead once again, leading into lap 217. And then Murray Clutchburn would take the lead very briefly, but then lose the lead to Kane Carafine, who would lead the field into lap 218 off of pit cycles. And Cal Weathers would take the lead after the pit stops were done and lead into lap 225. And then Carl Clutchen would take the lead on lap 225 and lead for 2 more laps. And then Ernie Gearson would retire from the race on lap 227. Piston Cup fans begged Ernie Gearson to not quit the race. Ernie Gearson didn't quit, but he's now down a lap because of him getting off the track. Bobby Swift would take the lead after the restart and lead into lap 233, where Speedy Comet would take the lead once again. He would lead into lap 238, and Jack DePost would help Ernie Gearson get back to the lead lap. Todd Marcus would surprisingly take the lead on lap 238, but lose the lead on lap 242 to Tony Gasworth, who would take the lead off of pit cycles. And then on lap 243, Lightning McQueen would retake the lead, leading all the way until lap 258. Speedy Comet would retake the lead on lap 258 and lead until lap 264, where Carl Clutchen would take the lead off of pit cycles. He would lead for just 2 laps before losing the lead to Matthew Overdrive, who would lead for 4 laps before Rex Revler would take the lead on lap 269. And an anonymous Piston Cup fan cheered Rex Revler when he took the lead this race. And Cal Weathers would retake the lead on lap 270 and lead into lap 277, where Lightning McQueen would allow Ernie Gearson to pass him on lap 277, and as a result, Ernie Gearson is now back on the lead lap. And Piston Cup fans would cheer for Ernie Gearson for getting back on the lead lap. Lightning McQueen would take the lead from Cal Weathers on lap 277 and lead into lap 282, where Brian Sparks would take the lead off of pit cycles. And the very next lap, Speedy Comet would be back in the lead. He would lead for 9 more laps before Lightning McQueen would retake the lead, leading all the way until lap 329, where Cal Weathers would take the lead for himself and lead into lap 348. Bobby Swift would take the lead on lap 348 and lead all the way until lap 356, where Carl Clutchen would take the lead for himself, leading for 3 laps. And then Bobby Rotesta would take the lead on lap 359 and lead for 2 laps before Speedy Comet would retake the lead once again, leading for 7 more laps before Cal Weathers would retake the lead once again, losing the lead on lap 385 to Speedy Comet. He would lead for 4 more laps, but then Speedy Comet's engine would blow, and now he's out because of an engine failure with 11 laps to go. Cal Weathers would take the lead after the restart and lead the final 10 laps of the race to win the 2016 New York 400 presented by Octane Gain, getting his first win of the season and his 34th career victory. Now, who finished second? Brick Yardley finished second this race, followed by Lightning McQueen in third, Carl Clutch in fourth, Murray Clutchburn fifth, ahead of Bobby Swift in sixth, Reb Meeker seventh, Rex Revler 8th, Ricky Axel 9th, and Ralph Carlo rounding out the top 10. And Tommy Highbanks would be the last car to finish on the lead lap this race, finishing 25th. As I already mentioned, here is the top 10, with Maury Clutchburn getting his first top 5 in over 2 years. And Todd Marcus was unlucky to miss out on getting a top 10 finish. Same with Kurt Busch-Tire, who did not lead a single lap this race. Jack DePost, Matthew Overdrive, and Dino Draftski round out the top 15, followed by Bobby Rotesta, Kane Carafine in his very first Piston Cup start, Ponchi Wipeout, Brian Sparks, and Tony Gasworth rounding out the top 20. Floyd Mulvihill will earn 100 points this race, finishing 21st this race, followed by Bruce Miller, Ernie Gearson, Dirksen D'Agostino, and of course, Tommy Highbanks, all finishing the race. Speedy Comet was really unlucky this race, finishing 26th. And here are all the cars who were out as a result of bad Brad Keselowski. Why did you have to be such a mean car? You don't want to be like Chick Hicks! He did win the Piston Cup, but nobody likes him! And here is the top 20 in points, with Cal Weathers reclaiming his points lead with Lightning McQueen in second, Bobby Swift in third, Jimmy Cable still fourth, and Brick Yardley rounding out the top 5 now, with Kevin Carvick, Martin Carrix Jr., Kurt Busch-Tire, James Garrison, and Phil Tankson rounding out the top 10. Dale Earnhardt Jr., who missed the last race, is still 11th in points, ahead of bad Brad Keselowski, followed by Kyle Carson, Doug Throttleman the Jumper, Maury Clutchburn surprisingly, Jamarcus Cakehart, Jack DePost, Ricky Axel, TG Castlenut, and Speedy Comet rounding out the top 20.
Remember to press the notifications button, which goes ring, ring, ring after you press it. And lightning strikes back, and that's as if you subscribed, of course. And thank you for watching this entire video.
Who's 21st in points? Carl Clutchen, and he's only 4 points behind Speedy Comet. Carl Clutchen might get into the top 20 next race if things go his way. Which is surprising because no one really expected anything from Carl Clutchen this season. Or Ricky Axel! Team Rev and Go was afraid that after 2007, when Misty Motocross retired, they would not find a better racer. They were mostly right until this season, where Ricky Axel is actually doing quite good. Now, what do you think will happen in the next race of the 2016 Piston Cup season, which will be the 10th race? The video covering that race will be coming out soon enough. But unfortunately, the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine is still going on. The Ukrainian people just want to live in peace and have freedom. But this common dream was ruined by the tyrant and bully, Vladimir Putin. Currently, Vladimir Putin's tyranny rules around 1/5 of Ukraine's land, including Crimea, the Donbass, and parts of the Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, and Kherson Oblasts. But Vladimir Putin isn't having everything going his way, as Ukraine controls parts of Russia's Kursk Oblast. But, despite these gains, every day it gets harder for Ukraine to win the war because of dwindling supplies, both in terms of equipment and soldiers. We here at the K.A. Bullets Piston Cup YouTube channel stand with Ukraine in their struggle against Vladimir Putin's tyranny, and also recognize Ukraine's true borders, which is shown by this map, which notably includes Crimea and the Donbass, territories that have been taken from Ukraine over 10 years ago now. Hopefully all land under Vladimir Putin's tyranny that is legally owned by Ukraine returns to Ukrainian control very soon. Slava Ukraini! Heroyam slava! Nechai shvite daruється, Ukraini перемога! Glory to Ukraine! Glory to the heroes! May Ukraine be granted victory very soon!